So today, we're going to look at corporate sustainability, but through a totally different and I think much more practical lens: lean thinking. Yeah, we're going to see how a philosophy that was born in a post-war factory gives us a surprisingly powerful way to create real environmental change. You hear this question all the time, right? The younger generation, they seem so passionate. They've got their reusable bags, their metal straws. But does all that individual effort really move the needle when you look at the big picture? Well, let's actually put it to the test. Let's look at the numbers. Okay, here's our baseline: a single round-trip flight from Bangkok to Seoul. A pretty normal trip for business or pleasure. That flight generates almost 500 kilograms of carbon dioxide. And that's just for one person sitting in economy. Now just hold on to that number for a second. And here is where the reality really hits you. On the right, all that hard work using your reusable bags and cups every single day might save you somewhere between 40 to 100 kilograms of CO2 a year. That's great, but look to the left. That one single flight. The math is just brutal. One trip can completely wipe out 5, maybe even 10 years of your daily eco-friendly habits. Gone. But let's take it up a notch. What about a long-haul flight, say Bangkok to Paris? Now we're talking over 2,100 kilograms of CO2. That's more than 2 tons. Suddenly, all those years of careful, daily effort are erased in a single vacation. And it gets even wilder depending on where you sit. Flying business class, that's triple the emissions. And first class, you're looking at 5 times the carbon footprint of an economy passenger. So that one first-class trip to Paris could pump out over 10 tons of CO2, basically offsetting 250 years of using a reusable bag. It just goes to show you, while our individual habits are important, we have to look at the systems that create these massive impacts. And that, of course, brings us to the corporate world. We see it everywhere: green logos, slick sustainability reports. But you have to wonder, are these companies doing this out of a genuine conviction to make things better? Or is it just another box they have to tick on a compliance form? Is it all just for show? So this leads us right to the heart of the problem with how we even talk about this stuff. We have to go beyond just the E in ESG. The issue really starts with how we're measuring sustainability in the first place. We've all heard the term ESG, environmental, social, and governance, but the focus has become, well, incredibly unbalanced. For a lot of companies, ESG has pretty much just become E. The entire conversation is about carbon, emissions, environmental metrics. That's it. And when the focus is that narrow, you run a huge risk of turning the whole idea of sustainability into a greenwashing campaign, where companies can look amazing on paper, but completely ignore the other, really crucial parts. So what gets left behind? Well, the S and the G, the social and the governance. We're talking about things like worker welfare, mental health support, how ethically you treat your suppliers, and just basic honesty and transparency. I mean, can you really call a company sustainable if it has a great carbon report, but it's failing to protect its own people? This intense focus on carbon didn't just happen in a vacuum. The whole global conversation has shifted over time. It went from these broad goals in the Kyoto Protocol back in '97 to the idea of ESG in 2004, and then after an inconvenient truth, it became a laser focus on carbon. And now, well, big geopolitical shifts are starting to challenge that whole momentum, which just shows how fragile these big top-down plans can be. Okay, so if the current approach has some serious flaws, where do we look for a better one? Well, believe it or not, the answer comes from post-World War II Japan, and a company that had absolutely no choice but to be efficient: Toyota. This is where lean thinking was born. Toyota's whole system is built on 3 core ideas. The first one is a Japanese word, Muda. Muda just means waste. It's any action, any process, any material that uses up resources, time, energy, money, but doesn't actually create any value for the customer at the end of the line. It's just pure loss. The second concept is Mura, which means unevenness. This is all about inconsistency in your workflow. You know that feeling of hurry up and wait? One minute you're slammed, the next you're sitting around with nothing to do. That's Mura. And when your process is that unpredictable, it's impossible to build an efficient, stable system. And the third one is Muri, which means overburden. This is something we can all relate to. It's when you push people or machines way too hard, for way too long, beyond what's reasonable. It just leads to burnout, mistakes, and eventually the whole system breaks down. It's the total opposite of long-term efficiency. So here they are, all together: Muda, Mura, and Muri. Waste, unevenness, and overburden. Getting rid of these three things is the absolute heart of lean thinking. It's all about creating a system that's smooth, that's balanced, and that's totally focused on creating real value. Now, here's where it all clicks together. This is the powerful part. How does this philosophy from a car factory connect to our environmental goals? Well, the link is incredibly direct. It turns out that eliminating operational waste is, fundamentally, the exact same thing as reducing our environmental footprint. Let's dig a little deeper into Muda, or waste. Lean actually identifies 8 specific kinds of waste. Things like delays, making too much of something, unnecessary transportation, and even not using the talent and ideas of your own team. Every single one of these wastes consumes energy and resources for absolutely no good reason. Let me give you a perfect real-world example. In a factory that made water meters, whenever they made a defective part, they would just quietly toss it back into the furnace to be melted down. Now, on the accounting spreadsheet, no material was lost. But what was lost? All the energy used to cast it the first time, and all the energy needed to remelt it. That was a huge hidden waste of energy, a cost to the business and a cost to the planet. And this right here is the critical connection. When you attack Muda, you reduce the overuse of energy and resources. When you fix Mura, you get rid of machines idling and consuming power for nothing. And when you prevent Muri, you stop pushing your systems past their most efficient point. You see? Tackling the 3Ms isn't some separate green project. It is a core carbon reduction strategy. And you might be thinking, okay, this sounds great for a factory, but this isn't just for manufacturing. Not at all. The principles of lean are totally universal. You can apply them to any system that serves people. And for a really fascinating example, let's look at the nation of Bhutan. So even in a country that is already carbon negative, lean creates incredible value. In Bhutan's health clinics, it means cutting down patient wait times and reducing medicine waste. In their schools, it's about streamlining all the administrative stuff so teachers can actually focus on teaching. For their local governments, it's about making public services like waste collection work better for everyone. Lean is just a powerful lens for improving any system you look through. So this brings us full circle. How do we get from just compliance, just ticking a box, to real conviction? How do we drive real systemic change? It all starts by daring to look a little deeper. And here's the real takeaway. For anyone working inside these systems, auditors, managers, employees, your real power isn't just in following the checklist. It's in asking the questions that aren't on the list. Simple questions like, hey, why do we do it this way? Or what energy is being wasted right here that nobody's even tracking? Those kinds of questions, they can force people to pause, to think, and to open the door to real, meaningful change. Because at the end of the day, true sustainability isn't found in a glossy report or a fancy certificate. It starts way earlier. It starts with the courage to see the waste that's hiding in plain sight and to just dare to ask why it's there.